Welcome to Outside the Hashmarks, episode 5. Ken, we got a good one tonight. Joining the show, we got Jeff Quinn, former offensive line coach at Notre Dame. He also coached the Kelsey brothers at Cincinnati. He's a phenomenal coach. And then we have Mike Wilford coming on the show. He played in the Fiesta Bowl at Nebraska. Then he went to Grand Valley. He's a two-time All-American. We got some pretty good guests on the show tonight. But Ken, we need to get right into a couple teams that we covered this year that are playing for state championships. And we're gonna start in Omaha, Nebraska, where Millard South played Omaha West Side. And let's just say this wasn't much of a football game. Millard South won 62-21. And I think it's important that people understand Millard South was the 4th seed. Omaha West Side was the 1 seed because earlier in the season, they had a little bit of an infraction. A couple players were living with the coach. It didn't matter. We talked about it all year. Millard South was the best team in the state. Jet Tamala committed to Alabama, 7 touchdown passes, 3 of those to Amarion Jackson. I told people a lot. That's the best wide receiver quarterback duo in the country, and I still mean it. Talk to me about that football game, Ken.
Well, I've said this 4 times this year, maybe more. Defense wins championships. I'm changing my mind. When we're talking about this team, it's all offense, baby. Defense doesn't matter because you can't outscore these guys. Wow, what a year. And last year, 49 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. This year, he's probably eclipsed that. Fantastic. They're number 1 in the country to me.
Oh, I mean, they're one of the best teams in the country for sure. And I believe he has 55 touchdown passes this year. He's also one of the best quarterbacks coming into the SEC this year. He's one of the players to watch. Just an incredible performance by Jet Tamala. They're going to play in the state championship game this week. I think we're pretty confident they're going to win the state championship. I don't know if there's too much more we need to say about that.
No, time to move on. What's next?
We're going to Wisconsin. We started Friday football tailgates in Wisconsin at Notre Dame Academy, and they won that football game. And they're going back to play for back-to-back state championships. They beat River Falls 42-6. Who do we have on the show last weekend, Ken?
Well, he was phenomenal, right?
Kingston Allen. What did he do? Yeah. He was already the state rookie. He was already the state rushing record holder for touchdowns in a season. Well, he rushed for 6 more and 243 yards. I believe he's less than 200 yards away from becoming the all-time single-season leading rusher in Green Bay. That's phenomenal. They won that game easy, but Ken, they got a tough one coming up. They are playing the number 1 team in the state championship game, West De Pere. They have Patrick Gleason. He's thrown almost 50 touchdown passes this year. That's going to be a good one, Ken.
It is. You know, we're in Green Bay, right, Labor Day weekend, and they were playing De Pere. Full circle, they're going to play West De Pere for the state championship. How ironic is that? And Kingston Allen, like I said, what a wonderful kid he was last week. Great conversation with him. And they might have to play a little ball control, but he's so used to running downfield by everybody. It might be, you know, a 50-something football game.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out the last time I seen a football game where you had a running back rush for 55 touchdowns and a quarterback throw for 50. This is going to be an incredible football game. Like we said, Notre Dame Academy had to move up from Division III to Division II. Going to be tough to win this football game, and we'll find out what happens Friday at 1 o'clock.
Camp Randall Stadium, right?
Camp Randall.
That's gonna be some crazy football over there.
That is definitely going to be some crazy football, and we'll see what happens with a couple teams we covered this season. Joining the show, the former Nebraska and Grand Valley State offensive lineman, a 2-time All-American and national champion in 2003, and the current assistant coach at Dowagiac, Mike Wilford. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Happy to be here.
We're happy to have you. So, Mike, after high school at Lakeshore, you go play football at Nebraska. And you're there for a couple seasons, and in 1999, you guys go 12-1. You win the Fiesta Bowl. You beat Tennessee. And things are going really well. You play with a couple really great football players, Dominic Raiola, Eric Crouch, who won the Heisman, and then you decide to transfer to Grand Valley State. You go to Grand Valley State, you become an All-American in 2001 and 2003. You also win a national championship in 2003, and I think you might have led the country in pancakes in 2001, if I remember correctly. Can you just talk to me a little bit about your time at Nebraska and Grand Valley State?
Well, the time in Nebraska was great. I mean, it was eye-opening. I come from, Lakeshore, I guess is big around here, but somewhat small school in the whole realm of things. And I got to Nebraska, and there was athletes all around. There was linemen all around. I mean, there was 200 guys on the football team. But it was kind of an eye-opening experience. It was a whole new, I guess, aura out there. Like I said, they kind of herded us like cattle when we were freshmen there. It was a different time. You could treat players differently, and it really made me a lot tougher. I'll say, like, it added the right kind of mental toughness that I needed to take my game to the next level there. I mean, I was doing well out there after my freshman year. I redshirted, but I worked out with the varsity line the whole winter conditioning. I mean, my numbers shot up. Everybody was saying I was doing great things. My main problem there was we came back the next year and there was an injury. I thought I was going to be in that spot. I thought I was going to start as a freshman there, and they started plugging these other guys in that were from Nebraska that were also out there with me that clearly, even asking them, knew they weren't as good as me playing football out there, and I started, being unsure of what my place was out there after that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. But we are thankful that you came to Grand Valley State. So, Mike, after college, your plan is to play in the NFL. And as a matter of fact, you go out to California and you start training and preparing for the 2004 NFL Draft. And I believe you were projected as a 4th or 5th round pick. You were one of the best linemen in the country, and then you tear your hamstring right before your pro day. Can you just talk to me a little bit about preparing for the NFL Draft and a little bit about that injury?
Well, preparing for the draft was great. I mean, I was living in Oakland, California, in a hotel room right downtown in the tourist section. I mean, life couldn't have been better. I was like, man, I'm not getting paid yet, but I could be getting paid to just work out during the day and like hang out and do what I got to do. I mean, it was a great experience down there. The guys that I worked with down there, Coach Alonzo, he's the head coach at San Jose State right now. Remember the guy doing the hammer dance, the football coach on the internet? That was him. He was MC Hammer's backup dancer, but he was also a great football coach. I mean, I had a great time out there in Oakland, and maybe that day I hurt my leg. I was going a little too hard. I was out there running 200s against a kid that was coming out of high school. He was supposed to be a big recruit at USC, and so they wanted to see what he could do as compared to me. So we're out there running 200s, and I'm smoking them, and I'm just like, I can do it a little faster. And the third one I ran, man, my hamstring popped, and ooh, man, that was an interesting time. So we kind of assessed the injury out there, and they're looking, and they're like, well, there's nothing you can really do except to try and get that knot out of your leg. So they walked me into the weight room there, and they had some guy who was probably about 500 pounds lean on my hamstring and dig his elbow right into that knot. I don't know what they thought that was going to do to help it, but boy, that sure was an excruciating moment. It was a great experience, but then when the injury came in and we came back to the pro day and I talked to the pro scouts, and I said, man, do you think I should try and run this 40? I don't think I'm going to get through, because my 40 was really going to set me apart. There was one guy in the draft that ran a faster 40 than me, Robert Gallery, and he was drafted 3rd overall. I would have been the next fastest lineman in that whole draft. I mean, once my agent saw me run a 40 out there, they were like, whoa, we didn't really know you could play. They kind of looked at me different. So, I couldn't really broad jump what I was going to broad jump. My vertical suffered a little bit, and then I couldn't even finish the 40. So, it was kind of an unfortunate ending there.
Let me go back here. You talked about Nebraska, and you talked about the transition. There's some rumors out there that you left Nebraska really because you wanted to play with this guy. Yeah. Can we settle that rumor or not? Is that true or no?
Well, I knew Brent was still at Grand Valley, but to be honest, Dan Vaughn gave me a call. He was a guy. He was actually played at Lakeshore. He was a senior when I was a freshman. He went and played at Michigan State for Nick Saban for a couple years, but then he came back and ended up being my wrestling coach my senior year of high school. So we developed a really good relationship during that time. And then when I got out in Nebraska, I mean, word got out. I started getting calls from all across the country from different schools and different places. But when Vaughn called me, and, I'd almost gone to Grand Valley out of high school. I really liked Coach Kelly. And, I mean, I went on all the recruiting visits with Brent, and I knew a lot of guys on the team. Shoot, what did we have, 7 Lakeshore players on the team?
Oh, yeah, it was Lakeshore U.
Yeah,
Everybody was
there
from
was a
Lakeshore.
lot of guys I knew there. So, I ended up, it was a pretty comfortable spot. I came back and I met Coach Quinn, and he had me out there wrestling some guy before their spring game. And he was like, got done, he kind of shook his head. I was like, is that good for you, Coach? And, I knew he was so excited to get there that it was probably going to be a good place for me.
Yeah, I mean, it was that was a great fit. It did wonderful things for Grand Valley State. But Mike, after the injury, you take a couple years off, and then you start playing arena football in 2007. And as a matter of fact, you and I played arena football together for a while. And in 2008 in Kalamazoo, I actually negotiated your contract. I'm pretty sure you got more money than I did, but you probably deserved it. And then after that, you're my Arena League coach for a little while. And then you start coaching high school football all over the state of Michigan, in Grand Rapids, at Grand Haven, Eau Claire, Lakeshore, and now at Dowagiac. You probably taught me more about coaching the game of football than anybody. Can you just talk to me a little bit about your coaching journey and when you knew you wanted to be a football coach?
Well, to be honest, I never thought about coaching. I only thought about playing in the NFL and being a player. And, up after me, I believe you're having Coach Quinn, who was our coach there, and he sat me down in the locker room one day, and he was like, Mike, you ever think about coaching? I was like, nope. I never thought 1 minute about it. He was like, well, football comes to an end for everybody. And I was like, nope, it's not coming to an end for me. And he was like, I think you have a lot of things that would make you a good football coach. You really understand the game. You kind of understand the preparation. Because Coach Quinn and I used to spend a lot of time talking. Like, he was an understudy of the guy, I can't think of his name right now, in Cincinnati, who taught or basically developed the zone offense with Anthony Munoz back in the day. And Coach would come up to me and he'd say, hey, I know we're stepping like this. I've been talking to these guys. What do you think if we changed our step and we did this? And I would sit there and talk to Coach for like an hour in the locker room. Sometimes people were out waiting in the car for me, and Coach would have me in there, and we were discussing, zone blocking and things like that, which, when he would tell me those things, they would make sense to me. And I say, yeah, Coach, I think we could do that. I think that would help us when instead of stepping forward, we step sideways, step backwards. You change all your steps and your footwork to kind of meet that zone offense. But learning a lot from Coach Quinn, who was a great coach. I mean, I learned so much from him, and he treated me, I'm not going to say as an equal, but he would bounce things off to me and talk to me. So I felt like we had a different relationship rather than just a player-coach. And after we had that conversation, somewhere in the back of my head, I stored that because I still was like, no, I'm going to be an NFL player. I'm probably never going to stop playing. But, when I got out, and there was a year I was out, and Terry Foster gave me a call at Creston. He said, hey, we need a line coach. Do you want to come here? And I was doing nothing at the time. I was like, well, hell yeah, I want to come there. I need to get back into football somehow. That's really how that started.
Well, Terry Foster, he coached all over the Arena League. He's been a GM. He's done a lot of great things. Mike, we were coaching at Lakeshore together. You were the JV head coach, and I was the offensive coordinator. And I really thought I knew the game of football. And you're literally up in the box, and I'm calling plays. And you're literally explaining to me, Brent, I'm not sure we can run that play into the boundary. And I would always get upset. I didn't really understand. You had so much knowledge of football. I talked about it earlier. You taught me so much about the game. I thought I knew a lot. Clearly, I knew how to run routes. I knew how to play running back. I didn't know much else. So this is more of just a thank you for everything you taught me about the game of football.
Well, I appreciate you having you there, but I always thought this about Brent. If the game plan wasn't set on Sunday, he wasn't running anything else. So he called me on Sunday saying, I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about that. I'm like, yeah, I'm thinking about it too. Then it's Wednesday. I'm like, okay, I think we need to change. He's like, no, we already said this Sunday. This is what we're running. I said, well, I don't know, Brent. We might want to, think about changing it up. I like to practice it during the week here.
You're funny you say that because he's the same way about this show.
Yeah, I can see that.
Where's the script? Don't change it. I got it all set. So
exactly.
It's his discipline. He's got great desire to be the best and do really well. So
absolutely, and he wants to be prepared. Right?
He wants to be prepared, absolutely, and he is.
Gotta be prepared. I know we got Goob here, Ron Lowry. He coached with us at Eau Claire. My brother Rick, I know you taught those guys a lot about the game. But Mike, you're doing something a little bit different. Obviously, you're coaching football at Dowagiac, but you started BC Hogs training in 2023 for offensive and defensive linemen in Southwest Michigan, and that's for 7th through 11th graders. And you started that with Michael Pettis and Danny Vaughn. And I believe the goal was to bring an east side of the state training style and lineman league to the west side of the state so the west side of the state could catch up with the east side of the state. Can you just talk to me a little bit about BC Hogs training? And if I'm a football player in the area, how do I get involved?
All right. First of all, I want to mention Mark McQuarrie. He's the guy that really made this thing happen. He is the offensive line coach there at Battle Creek Central. He's the one that got the turf, and when I had the idea, he told me he had the turf to make it work. But so I guess where mine comes from, coaching Division V football, all my athletes, all my linemen play another sport. At the Dowagiac, I pretty much don't see them till the season starts. We try and get some summer stuff, but then we got that damn rec league baseball in the summer, and who wants to come to football practice if you can go play a baseball game? So, I was really kind of in a rut. We were, in a rebuilding time there at the Dowagiac, and I wanted to do something to make myself better, to go out, get better, to get ideas of what I can do just to make overall football on the west side better. So I called Justin Sassante, Legacy there, and I talked to him, and I said, I'm looking to get in with some Legacy and do some stuff. I'd like to do some stuff on the west side of the state. Well, they invited me over there to go coach, so I spent pretty much a whole winter and a spring driving to Legacy every weekend and coaching their linemen there. And I would get there and I would see, 40 to 60 linemen training, and they have all the coaches there are pretty much Division I guys, NFL guys. There's some of the best coaches in the area over there. It's really good to see. And there's 40 to 60 kids every week, week in and week out, going over there, busting their butts and getting better. And and I come back here to the west side of the state, I'm like, there's absolutely nothing. There's nothing over here. I can't even look up, there's a couple summer camps. There's the Muskegon camp with bowls in the summer, but nothing for the winter, nothing for any kids that don't play other sports. And really that training falls in for kids that might not be the best linemen out there, right? They might be struggling to get in, but they don't play another sport. They're not athletic enough to be the heavyweight on the wrestling team. They don't want to go out and wrestle. What are they doing lifting weights? But lifting weights is part of the process, but you can't learn what you need to learn. You can't be a better lineman just by lifting weights. You can stay in the weight room all the time, but, stagger, understanding that, leverage, understanding the types of blocks, the 5 blocks there are. We get into the season, you have, 10, 15 minutes of individual time? You've got no time to go through this stuff. And, some of these kids come from, wing T schools, and, it's just all down blocking. So they're at a disadvantage when they get to college. Randy Brooks, who was coach there at Dowagiac for a while, would talk about Preeb, the kid that went to Northwestern and ended up at Michigan, and he said that they would never teach him anything. They wouldn't teach him about stagger because they wanted him to play in the Edwardsburg offense. He said he would come in, he'd be, watching YouTube videos, and he would come in and show the coaches. They're like, that's great, but that's not what we need here, which I understand. But then I was like, well, I think there's a need for these kids to be able to get out and learn these basic fundamentals. And not only that, it makes me a better coach because I'm spending all off season coaching the same fundamentals and learning how I can do that better and what I can do that, maybe works better this year that didn't work as much last year. And, pretty much bred it into existence that way with Mark's help over there. And we built it, slow. We had maybe 10 kids, and then we got Kalamazoo Central to commit, and they started bringing 10 kids of their own in Battle Creek and the surrounding schools there. It's kind of grown. We normally have about 20 kids, 20 to 25 kids each Saturday. They just got to show up. We have a flyer. We put it on Facebook. It's at the Battle Creek Central's field house there on Saturday mornings from 9 to 11. We have a waiver they can sign when they're there. It's $10 a player for 2 hours of training, and we'll go there. Now, you can come for all these sessions. Then when the spring comes, we actually transition into the Lineman League part of Legacy, which, for the kids on the west side of the state, I don't see anything better. You go over there, and there's probably 3 or 4, up to 5 Division I linemen there, offensive and defensive linemen that you get to play. It's like a 7-on-7 type of thing. It's pass rush. And you get to go against those kids. And I tell these kids from the smallest town over here, I was like, man, that guy's going to Penn State next year. You just went in there and whooped them. What kind of confidence does that bring to you going back and playing Division 7 or 8-man football? You're not going to see those type of guys, and you should be able to build some confidence from, views like that.
Tell me one of your greatest memories playing high school football.
Well, I can't say beating Brent in Dowagiac. I hadn't beat him since the first time we played my freshman year. But, I would say beating St. Joe, every season and in every sport I ever played at Lakeshore. And the last St. Joe game, the lights went out in the third quarter, and like we had to come back and play it the next day. I mean, it was high drama, and they had a great team that went to the semifinals that year that we ended up beating them. I mean, we had a great drive down in the fourth quarter to take the lead. I mean, I think that was probably the biggest moment in high school for me.
How about who you despise the most, or who you just wanted to play because you just wanted to grind them?
Well, the Wajak. Brent was always a target. Not so much even by me, but everybody in the community. They would rally behind to get Brent Lesniak, So the grinded out games, which I can't say I enjoyed because I never won one. In fact, we got beat pretty bad my last year there was the Wajak.
Well, that brings me to kind of my next question. Our rivalry. We played a lot in high school. We carried on. We played a lot of football after. But you were at Lakeshore. I was at Dowagiac. I don't think the record really matters. I think Dowagiac won most of those games, but we did have a game in 1996, and that was an absolute massacre of a fight. Like, we were just going at it back and forth, and we win in the last second on a quarterback sneak by Josh Pallas. We had ran like 15 quarterback sneaks because you guys were keying on me, and we end up winning that football game. I believe it was like 18-12. Can you just talk to me a little bit about that game? I'm pretty sure the fire trucks came in, watered the field down. I'm not sure there was any chance I had a prayer to run on that field, but can you talk about that game and a little bit about the rivalry?
Well, let me talk about that game first. There's two specific moments. We had the ball on the goal line. We ran. I was in the backfield then. They had me as a goal line fullback. We had 4 downs from the 1-yard line. We got stopped on all 4 plays. Every time we would have a timeout, we'd go over there and talk to Coach Doc. I say, just give me the ball. There's no way they can stop me. Just give me the ball. And now we had Jake Tony carrying the ball, Jesse Tony and me blocking for him. I'd probably take those odds too. But, that moment probably lost us that game. And then Pat Williams, who played at Grand Valley, our punter, he was a great punter there at Grand Valley. We're going to try and win the game. They said, all you do is don't kick the ball to Lesniak, right? The game is over. We'll be able to stop him. He goes out there, boots a 35, 40-yard punt directly into the hands of Brent, who takes a massive shot from Jake Tony and bounces off, continues down up the field, and, the rest was history. And, yeah, maybe playing double threes in that game to key you wasn't the best idea with the quarterback sneak in there.
I've never seen a quarterback in my life rush for over 100 yards on quarterback sneak.
Right.
It was amazing. Our fullback had a big game. It was probably one of my worst games of my career.
You only had 80 yards?
I think I had 1,000 carries for 80 yards, but I couldn't have been more excited. We go on and play in the state semifinals. You probably had the toughest schedule in the state of Michigan. I think you had 4 or 5 state championship teams on that schedule. That was incredible. But we had some great football games. We won't bring up our senior year where we beat you by 4 touchdowns, and I had a really good game. But Mike, I really appreciate you coming and being on the show. And we're going to have Jeff Quinn on the show.
That's exciting.
We'd like you to stay on the show and maybe help us out with the interview.
I'd love to sit around and see Coach.
I got one more question for you.
Yeah.
Think back, you've been out of school almost 30 years.
Yeah.
Could you have done it now with all the social media and all the going? I mean, talk about that mindset. You're coaching now.
I do think that would have changed things. I don't know for the better or for the worse. Maybe we would have had to act better back then when we were on social media, or someone could have filmed you and put it on the internet the next day. But it does add something to the game. And, I think it adds to the rivalries at this point because all the kids, we were rivals with Brent, but I never talked to him before the game. I never insulted him or tried to talk to his girlfriend. Now the kids are on talking to each other before the week. They know each other better than, their teammates half the time. So I think it adds to maybe the drama of the games, but it certainly could be a detriment to the off-field life.
Can you imagine? If we'd had video back in the day, you guys, we could have been pulling up. This show would have been better than it was.
Oh, my goodness,
we'd have to probably...
Maybe you can get that 30 for 30 one day that's unedited.
We're waiting for that 30 for 30. All we had back in the day was signs. Yes. Rather be dead than red. Scott Blasco signs when he transferred to Lakeshore.
Oh, yeah.
Talked about play it again sports. That's all we could do back then was put up signs and put them in the stand. So it was a different world.
St. Joe, the student section would have bed sheets with things written on them. Some of them I can't even say anymore. It's amazing to think what used to be put out there on those signs.
Well, it was an incredible rivalry. I know it's not one anymore, and you're on the other side of the fence at Dowagiac. You've been at Dowagiac for a while, coaching with Dwayne Davis. Do you want to just talk a little bit real quickly about being at Dowagiac, turning that football program around? At one point, you guys lost 14 straight games, and now you're a playoff team consistently. Just talk to me a little bit about that turnaround real quick.
The turnaround has been, a lot of hard work. There was a couple years I think I was probably depressed in there thinking, man, I don't know if we can do this. But, as always, if you just stick with it, you know what's right, even when it's not working in the moment. If you just stick with it, the right thing is going to win out in the end. And, listening to Ryan Brady talk about turning around Saginaw last night really resonated with me. Everything he said was like things we had. It's like, first of all, we had to get tough enough. Were the kids tough enough? Were they willing to be physical? Then we got to be tough enough, but we didn't have the mindset that we thought we could win the games, And then we got through that hurdle, right? I think this year was really the first year where we're starting to understand as a program, hey, we can compete every year. It wasn't a fluke last year. We didn't just beat Buchanan this year by accident. And I think every game we've had with Berrien Springs, we've got a little closer talent-wise. And I think going forward, as long as, we stay on the same path and we keep getting support from the school and the administration, I'm begging to get a strength training coach in there at Dowagiac for all athletes and all hours, but I think we can continue to have success, and especially in the area here. I mean, you look when we get out of the area, it's going to be a little tough in the regionals for everybody, but, I think if we keep staying on this plan and we keep working and building positivity around the program, we got tough kids. I mean, Dowagiac has always had tough kids. They're mentally tough. I've never worried about that. Now we got to start using our brains a little more and taking that next step and really executing on a championship level. I talked about with them a lot this year, and I think going forward, I think that's our number one message is let's just not beat ourselves. Like when Ryan Brady said Michigan Tech is never going to beat themselves, if we could do that with the toughness we have, I think we could really, do some good things there.
Oh, yeah. I love talking football with you. We're going to have you stay on the show and talk to Jeff Quinn. Coach Quinn, you obviously played for him, but I appreciate you being on the show, and the best of luck.
Thank you.
Joining the show, a two-time national championship winning coach at Grand Valley State, the former head coach at Buffalo, and the offensive line coach at Notre Dame, Jeff Quinn. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that.
So, Coach, you started coaching football in 1984 at DePaul, and you were there for a little while, and then you go to Ohio Northern and you coach football there for a bit. But I want to talk to you about your time at Grand Valley State from 1989 to 2003 with Coach Kelly. You guys won a lot of conference championships in the 90s. You win back-to-back national titles in 2002 and 2003. Can you just talk to me a little bit about your time at Grand Valley State and a little bit about all your success over 15 seasons?
Well, I appreciate that. And, the gentleman that was the head coach at that time was Tom Beck. Okay. And Tom was my college football coach at Elmhurst College. And so after I finished DePaul for 2 years as a graduate assistant, I went to Ohio Northern and spent 3 years there. In those 3 years, I went and visited Grand Valley. And one of my former teammates was the offensive line coach at Grand Valley. So he and I were teammates, and I would go there and just to learn and talk to Coach Beck. And, I was a captain and All-American for him and so on and so forth. So we always kept in touch. Coach Beck and I still have a tremendous relationship. And I remember my third year at Ohio Northern, Pat Battistini was the O-line coach, my teammate. And he said, you know what? I want to get into comedy. He didn't want to get into coaching. He goes, you come here. He goes, Quinn, this job, I'm telling you, it'd be perfect for you. And that's how it, he left, got into, comedy, and Tom called me, Coach Beck, and offered me the job back in 1989. And so Brian was on staff, Coach Kelly. He was on the defensive side, defensive back, and I needed a bed to sleep in, actually. And so we had a 2-bedroom apartment in Standale, Michigan, and he hooked me up, and we recruited, and we just got along great. And obviously, I was reunited with my college football coach, and 2 years later, he takes the Notre Dame job with Coach Holtz. Well, then they promote Brian Kelly as the head coach. And my wife always told me, he goes, Jeff, unemployment's never an option. So Brian offered me to stay, and I stayed as the offensive line coach, became the offensive coordinator. And I'll tell you what, that was the beginning, right? And every single year, Brian would ship me out on the road to go talk to other coaches, line coaches, offensive coordinators all over the country to learn more about various protections. And I'll never forget the conversation. He goes, Quinn, I'm sick and tired of keeping 7 people in to protect our quarterback. I need to get a few more out than the few you only want me to get out. And he challenged me. And next thing you know, we got into some 6-man protections, some 5-man protections. And next thing you know, we're learning from Todd Monken, who is the offensive coordinator with the Baltimore Ravens, and obviously recruiting, gentlemen like yourself, you, Brent, and, Mike Wilford and all the great players that we were able to bring to Grand Valley. And next thing you know, here we are. We're on the cusp of, taking this thing to a whole different level, which had never been done. Yeah, we won a lot of conference championships. Certainly we did. But we always had our eyes on the big prize. And we went there in 2001. And 2002, we reloaded and we win the whole thing. And 2003, for the first time, right? That's the beauty of it. Had never been done before. And then 2003, guys graduated, and we were able to, get a bunch of young players mixed with older players, and we repeated as national champs. And Mike was there, and it was an incredible time. I was married, and both my sons were born and raised in Allendale, Michigan at Grand Valley, and saw the growth of Grand Valley to a level that we see today that nobody ever expected, and it's a destination place. It was a fantastic time. And I always appreciated, what the university, Don Lubbers and Ron Van Steelen, our athletic directors, Tim Selgo, and obviously Brian. It was, and to be at one place for 15 seasons, that's unheard of. It really is. But we were winning, and, and we had a pretty good handle on the recruitment of the great state of Michigan. That was, and I love Michigan. So, I'm saying the state of Michigan now. Okay.
I'm with you, Coach. I'm with you, baby. I hear you.
Hey,
I'm
still a Notre Dame guy.
Coach, in 2009, you become the interim head coach at the University of Cincinnati. Brian Kelly leaves to take the Notre Dame job. And I think people forget just how good that Cincinnati team was. As a matter of fact, if Texas doesn't make a last-second field goal in the Big 12 championship, you guys probably play for the national championship. I believe you guys finished 3rd in the BCS standings. And your first task as head coach of Cincinnati is to stop the greatest quarterback in college football history in the Sugar Bowl, Tim Tebow. Can you just talk to me about that 2009 team and a little bit about the Sugar Bowl?
Well, so it goes kind of back when Brian Kelly left Central to go to Cincinnati. I became the interim head coach at Central. So I had a little previous experience of when Brian would leave and go to the next job, and I stayed back. So when he called me and said, hey, I'm leaving to go to Notre Dame, as now you're going to be the interim head coach again at Cincinnati. So this is my second time. And I said to him, well, does that mean when you leave Notre Dame to go to the NFL, I'm going to be the interim head coach again at Notre Dame? I said, of all things, Brian, we're undefeated. We're 12-0. Like, we had a fantastic football team. We went there and, and our first year we win 10 games at Cincinnati. The next year we win 11. And the third year, here we are winning 12 games, all 12 games. And he's like, well, you know what, Quinter? He goes, I got to go to Notre Dame. I got to get going over there. And I'm like, are you sure? I said, man, we got a big time opponent, Florida, in the Sugar Bowl. Pour some sugar on me, man. Let's go. Well, that was tough because the guys were, it was the dynamics of a head coach like Brian Kelly, who's taken us to an undefeated season, had tremendous Big East champs, 2 back-to-back seasons, at Cincinnati, when the Big East was the Big East, but to take on Florida, when we went on that field in pregame at the Sugar Bowl, and their receivers, there ain't a guy under 6'3", 6'4". Their receivers looked like tight ends, and their linemen were huge, and their defense was fantastic. But we scored the second most points against Florida's defense in that game. Unfortunately, we gave up a lot of points. But and Urban was going to retire because of health reasons and things of that nature. But yeah, they were the returning. Well, they had won the national championship the year before in 2008. It was 2009 when they lost to Alabama in the SEC championship game that, helped Alabama. Well, we get, Florida and Tim Tebow and the Sugar Bowl. And it was, I was proud the way our guys stuck together, fought through what we had to go through. And, in the meantime, the game's over and I'm going to go to Notre Dame. Well, Buffalo had called and offered me the head coaching job. So I'm transitioning out of the Sugar Bowl to Buffalo, and I get introduced as the head coach now at Buffalo. This is all within, a few weeks. It's a short period of time, right? It's just you're drinking through a fire hose. It's incredible. But we had a great team at Cincinnati, and it helped Brian get to Notre Dame. It helped me get to the Buffalo as the head coach. And I'll never forget, I told the fans in Buffalo, I said, you know what it feels like being head coach now at Buffalo after the Cincinnati and everything we went through? I said, it feels like I died and went to heaven. You first coach in the Sugar Bowl, and then you go to Buffalo. And we had an absolute ball, But it was, a lot of people don't realize the behind the scenes that all transpired. But to play a great team like Florida and their defense, Charlie Strong was our defensive coordinator. I was a finalist for the Frank Broyles Award. Kirby Smart was a finalist. He won it. Charlie Strong was a finalist for the, Frank Broyles Award. I was, and 2 others, Dick Bumpus and Brian Arson. And of those 4 became head coaches in that year in 2009. So not only was the team, they were great. That's when Jason Kelsey played for me, and we had Marty Gilliard and, Tony Pike and, some of the great players. And that team was in the Hall of Fame now at Cincinnati. So it was fantastic. It was tough losing Brian and not having everything, that we felt we needed to beat Florida. But now I was proud of the way our guys showed up and took care of business as best they could.
Hey, Coach, this is a podcast about high school sports, all right? And I know how important high school sports are to you and your son Ryan, who's a wrestling coach at Lakeshore. Talk to us a little bit about his success at Lakeshore as a head wrestling coach and how much that makes you just smile. Because I know you love wrestling. You're a big part of wrestling in your career as well.
Yeah, both football and wrestling. Yeah, all those. I mean, I started back in in the youth, of doing both football and wrestling. And I've always encouraged both my sons, my oldest son Kyle and my youngest son Ryan, but to both, football, wrestling, track. Those were the 3 sports. That's what I did. That's what they did. And Ryan actually wasn't going to be a teacher and a coach. He was going to be an eye doctor. He went to Central Michigan as a biomedical science major, and he was on the wrestling team. He was he was a scholarship wrestler there. And, once he was done there and the challenge of getting into, school after, his bachelor's degree, he had to change courses. And next thing you know, he's like, Dad, I want to get into education. I want to teach and I want to coach. And I'm like, all right, hey, we're going to support you anyway, whatever direction you go. And to see him, and again, and Mike knows, Lakeshore Wrestling is one of the premier programs in the state of Michigan. And when he took over, when he told me he was going to Lakeshore, and Bruce Bittenbender was the head wrestling coach, and he's the all-time winningest wrestling coach, and Michigan wrestling, I said, man, it's tough to take over for a legend now, son.
Never found one of those.
Oh yeah, but he's done a fantastic job. He's very passionate about the sport. He's very passionate about education and teaching. He's in the science department. He even took on cross country this fall, and so we couldn't be more proud. And really, both of our boys have done an outstanding job. One's an accountant down in Florida, and Ryan's up here in Michigan, and we chase him around every single wrestling season. We try to get to as many matches and meets as we can, just to show him our love and support. And but he's done a great job. He's had a number of state champs and All-Americans, and they just started the girls wrestling program at Lakeshore, and he was a big part of getting that going. And so yeah, every day you feel proud as a father, as a family, to see your sons really take into the profession that is provided me so many great opportunities. But yeah, so I appreciate you bringing that up.
Well, I got a chance to see him up there. I took my son to the youth camp a few years ago, and I know he's following a legend with Bruce, who was my wrestling coach, but I mean, watching him up there working with the kids was a great thing. I mean, I could see so much of you in him, and I think he's really going to do something special there at Lakeshore. I think it was about time. It was time for a little something different up there, and I think he's the right kind of different. I think he's going to do a great job there.
Well, I appreciate that, Mike. And I always felt like every moment's a teaching moment, and every moment's a learning moment. And when he decided to leave, because he was actually the head wrestling coach down in Ohio, where he went to high school when I was at Cincinnati, and for 2 years. And he was a state qualifier, so on and so forth. Oak Hills High School in Cincinnati, Ohio. Well, he got the job down there, and I'll never forget that he called me and he goes, Dad, Greg Younger, the athletic director at Lakeshore, he's been really pushing hard, about me coming there. And I'm like, son, you do what you think is best for you and your family. And he's got his, his newly married, and next thing you know, she's from Cincinnati. So it was always a little bit like, will she want to leave Cincinnati to come up here to Michigan? And she's done a great job, because even my wife, Shannon, she's fantastic. I mean, you can't do this on your own. No one man alone can do it, regardless. And so you got to have a very supportive wife, and she has been very supportive. They got 3 little ones, and now his oldest daughter, she got her pink wrestling shoes, and they're doing the girls wrestling camp, and then at night, so I appreciate you bringing that up, Mike, because I am really, really proud, and I'm glad it's at Lakeshore, because it goes back a long, long way when I was recruiting Lakeshore, and to see what they've done, and wrestling and football, it's been tremendous. It's been a great place, great community too. I mean, we love it up there. The location's awesome. So they're very happy there, and we're very excited to see what they can come up with this year again. They got a state champ coming back, Pilot Schwab. The little guy, man, he's tough as nails. Yeah, he's a good one.
Well, Coach, I love Shannon because I'm pretty sure you're not on this show if I don't communicate with Shannon. I actually got your phone number from her. We stay in contact all the time, so I'm a big fan. But, Coach, I do need to take you back just a little bit. You did get your first head coaching job at the University of Buffalo, and you coached there from 2010 to 2014. And I know you had some struggles trying to turn that program around a little bit, but you had your best season in 2013. You go 8-5, you guys play in a bowl game, you just missed playing for the MAC championship, and you also coached one of the greatest NFL football players of all time in Khalil Mack. Can you just talk to me about your time at Buffalo, and did you know you were coaching an NFL Hall of Famer at the time?
Well, you don't really know that, but you do. You see him every day, and you could tell, And I mean, I had Jason Kelsey and Joe Staley at Central, Jason at Cincinnati, and we had players, that, made it to the NFL and were drafted at Central and Cincinnati. And here I am at Buffalo. And, the challenges initially at Buffalo for me and our staff was we just weren't winning off the field. You can't win on the field until you win off the field. And what I mean by that is going to class, taking care of business, training right, take care of your body, all the things necessary to be, a great athlete and a great player and a leader. And I could tell, so Khalil was a true freshman when I got there. Khalil had one offer to a Division 1A school, one, and it was Buffalo. Now, that was the previous staff had offered Khalil. I came in, he had been redshirted, so he didn't play as a true freshman. But when we started training and going through all the drills and things of that nature in the morning, I'm like, who is this guy? He's all of 6'4", and again, maybe down at that time, he was maybe 230, 235. But you could tell this guy, it was really good. And then we put the pads on. And, me, I'm as a head coach, I'm still over by the O-line, right? And this guy is zipping past our guys. I'm like, this dude is quick. He's fast. He's instinctive. He's athletic, and we just needed to put some more weight on him and more strength. And as time went on, his redshirt freshman year, he has a great year. His sophomore year, I am now going full tilt to every magazine, preseason, what have you. And I'm like, you guys got to keep an eye on this guy. And they're like, who? Buffalo? What's this? And next thing you know, he sets an NCAA record for the most TFLs, in his collegiate career. He set numerous records in the MAC and numerous at Buffalo. And we go to Ohio State. He's a senior, and I'll never forget this. He intercepts Braxton Miller's pass, and he runs it. He runs right by them all, right? Scores a touchdown. It's our first game. Now, it's his last, it's 2013. And we were jacked, and this is a culmination of this guy's hard work. I mean, nobody single blocked him after his first year or second year. Nobody. Everybody had either 2 or 3 and sometimes 4 dudes on offense trying to block this one guy, which helped our other guys. I'd be like, hey, if there's 4 on him, you guys better be making some plays over there, Colby Way and all these other guys. Well, when that interception took place, I said, that is a life-changing moment. I said, Khalil, this is going to elevate you to levels. It's going to be broadcast all over. And that's exactly what happened. Next thing you know, he's the 5th pick overall in the NFL draft. Not the 5th round pick, the 5th pick at Old Buffalo. So I knew that was a culmination of him, his family, his work ethic. He was just so instinctive and so tough and just unbelievable player and a leader. I mean, you talk about galvanizing a locker room. When Khalil said something, I mean, there wasn't a peep being said, We all knew that, who ran that locker room. And he was tremendous. He really was. And look at what he's done still to this day. So it was a thrill just to know that, I had the opportunity, knowing that our plan and the way we went about our business every day helped, build him into that level of a player. And I just wish I could get a little piece of the action there,
Yeah, trying to get a little piece of the pie. Well, Coach, I feel like I have to talk to you a little bit about Brian Kelly. You guys coach football together for over 30 years. I know you went to Buffalo for a couple years, but you guys always find your way back to each other. You guys have won everywhere you've been. You guys have both been very successful. I think Brian's caught a little bit of a bad rap probably the last few months. And everything I know about Brian Kelly is every time I've ever texted him, he responds back to me. I go to his radio show. He talks to me. He talks to his kids. He talks to my parents. He talks to everybody. Nobody probably knows him as well as you do. And I don't really want to talk about that, but can you just talk a little bit about you and Brian Kelly's relationship? Obviously, you guys have been doing it for a long time. And maybe just a little bit about your time at Notre Dame and all the success that you guys had there.
Well, so when Brian and I first, got to know each other, we were on, he was on the defensive side, I was on the offensive side. And then he came over on the offensive side at Grand Valley. And, I was the offensive line coach. He didn't have a ton of experience at that position, coordinating the O-line in the running game and protections and so on and so forth, the screen game. And so he let me do it, and I always appreciated that about Brian. Brian was, he's just one of those men that you meet that he'd give his shirt off his back to any of his players, any of his coaches, So, I have nothing but great admiration and respect for Brian. Listen, when I left Buffalo, I got 2 phone calls, and one was from Brian Kelly and the other one was from Todd Monken. Brian calls me up, goes, "Quinner," he goes, "you're coming to Notre Dame." Now, this was during the middle of the season. And he goes, "Let me finish the season and you got a job. Don't worry, you're coming to Notre Dame." That's the respect and level that he had for me. We've spent 28 seasons coaching together through Grand Valley, Central, Cincinnati, and Notre Dame. We've outlasted most marriages, from that standpoint. That's unheard of for 2 guys to stay together for that long. So you knew that there was great admiration, great respect. But Brian is one of the smartest guys I ever worked with. And he was awesome to work with. And I love recruiting with them. And I love game planning with them. I'd coordinate the offense. I'd build that thing all week up. And we'd toss him the keys and he'd call it. And and we were kind of that, that yin and that yang. We always could feed off of one another, And yeah, we butt heads. Sure we did. A couple Irishmen, one from Chicago and the other one from Boston, Massachusetts, certainly. But at the end of the day, there was nothing but complete respect and admiration. Our families, are very close. His kids were raised with my kids and so on and so forth. So you realize that, and here he is, the winningest coach. And one of the winningest coaches ever, Notre Dame. I mean, he beat New Rockneys all-time winner, right. So the guy's doing something, right. And but he's a very smart, he's very intuitive, and he knows the business better than anybody. And I always appreciated that. And he gave me opportunities like nobody else. So as I always said, my wife and I we admire him and his family, and he's been awesome, and I always appreciated it.
Well, I love that, Coach. Coach Quinn, thank you so much for being on the show. We appreciate you coming on and chatting with us, and we wish you absolutely nothing but the best, Coach.
Well, I appreciate it, gentlemen. You guys have a great night. High school football still going strong right now for football. It's going to be exciting to see who makes it down to Detroit, and see who comes out ahead, but I do appreciate you. And Mike, it's good to see you.
It's great seeing you, Coach. As always.
All right. Thank you so much, Coach.
Nice to meet you, Coach. You enjoy. Thank you very much. Enjoy your night.
All right. Have a great night.
So, Ken, we had some incredible guests on the show. We talked about teams playing for state championships. Now we're going to talk about some teams that we covered that are trying to make it to some state championship games. We're going to do a little rapid fire prediction for state semifinals in the state of Michigan. And we're going to kick it off with Detroit Catholic Central versus East Kentwood. Detroit Catholic Central pounded Clarkston last week, 42-13. Cedric Williams had 112 yards rushing, and Samson Gash, I think he had 100 yards in the first half. He's one of the best players in the state. That game was over before it started. And then East Kentwood, Caden Kaufman, who's committed to Michigan State, he had a heck of a football game. They blew that thing open against Hudsonville, who they beat earlier in the year. So I think we're going to have a great football game. Detroit Catholic Central versus East Kentwood. Who do you like, Ken?
Well, it's a sentimental pick for me. I have a good buddy that I used to coach with against basketball years ago. Marty Martin's a strength coach up in East Kentwood. Been there for a long time. I'm going with East Kentwood.
Now, I love it, and I love Marty Martin, but Detroit Catholic Central is going to win this football game, and they're going to win it by 3 touchdowns. Our guy, Justin Sasante, he's taking his team all the way to the state championship, and they're going to win it this year. I'm taking Detroit Catholic Central 42-21. But, Ken, we got some other football games in the area. Portage Central versus Orchard Lake St. Mary's. I talked about this game. To me, this is the state championship game. Portage Central coming off maybe their worst defensive performance of the year. They give up 20 points. I don't know if they've really done that the whole season. Traverse City Central was able to find open areas. They scored points, but Portage Central was able to score enough points to win that football game. Cam Noe, we got to talk about my guy, Cam Noe. He had 2 touchdowns. The offensive line, who you highlighted, played really well. Talk to me about Portage Central and Orchard Lake St. Mary's.
Well, I mean, they got challenged for the first time really this year, right? So, but they responded to the challenge, which is great. And I'm still sticking with them. I know you've been preaching Orchard Lake St. Mary's all year and how good they are, and there's no question about it. They're very, very good. But I'm going to stay with the local flavor. I'm going to stay with Portage Central.
Well, and I kind of want to stay with you, but I don't know if I can. Orchard Lake St. Mary's lost to Detroit Catholic Central, who I think is the best team in the whole state, by 13 points. For the first time all year, Portage Central looked a little vulnerable to me. So I'm going to go ahead and take Orchard Lake St. Mary's. They're coming off a 42-7 win against Dow. I'm going to take Orchard Lake St. Mary's 28-21 in a classic. Ken, this one's special to your heart. We had the Menominee head coach on the show last week. This is a battle of number 1 versus number 2 in Division 7. Menominee versus Pewamo Westphalia. These are 2 of the best teams in the state year in and year out. They both have multiple state championships. Both teams are undefeated. This is going to be an absolute shootout. Ken, who do you like in this football game?
Well, I'll tell you, you're talking about resumes that are really, really similar, right? You're talking about multiple state championships. Pewamo Westphalia has been past the second round every year except 2010 and 2022. Every year since 2010, they've been past the second round, okay? In 2014, I was athletic director at Waterloo. They beat us 20-14. I thought we should have gotten that year. We had a couple key injuries, but it was a great job. Coach Jeremy Andrews at Waterloo did a fantastic job. But after that, 2015, they lost to Ishpeming. Familiar with them?
I remember that, oh yeah.
2016, they beat Detroit Loyola. 2017, they beat Saugatuck. 2019, they beat Lumenum Christi. 2021, they beat Lawton. Wow, what a resume. How can you go against them? Well, I can because I'm from the UP. I'm going with Menominee. Their coach said, we both have earned it. They scored a lot of points. Both teams have scored a lot of points this year. They have a great quarterback at Pewamo Westphalia. They run little RPOs, right? Give it to the lineman, give it to the running back, keep it to the quarterback, throw it. They can do a lot of things. 2 great linebackers, inside linebackers for Pewamo Westphalia. Very good football team. Tradition obviously is stronger than anybody around. And but I'm still going to go with Menominee. They play in Gaylord at 1 o'clock. That's like playing in the UP for Menominee, so I'm giving them the home field's advantage.
Well,
The
Menominee,
Maroons.
Menominee kind of deserves that. I mean, they played some great football all year. And Menominee, to me, is the best team in the state of Michigan in Division 7. They have a guy by the name of Clayton Miller. We talked to him a little bit about him last week with the coach. What does he do? He plays running back. He's got 23 touchdowns this year. He also plays D-line.
Puts his hand in the ground.
Puts his hand in the ground. I've never seen anything like it. He also kicks the extra point, 7 for 7 last week. And then he also kicks off. And he gets a lot of touchbacks. How can you go against a guy like that? I'm going to take Menominee to win this football game, 35-21, Ken.
Yeah, I like that. We're back together.
Thank you. Hey, we're back on track. I'm not going to say anything about a couple picks you made, but that's all right. We got Schoolcraft in Clinton. Schoolcraft is on a little bit of a run. We had them earlier in the year when they played Constantine. They won that football game. This is a very good football team. They can throw the ball well. They have a two-headed monster in the backfield, but Clinton's a very good football team. They won a classic last week, 20-18 against Millington. Clifford Jones does a little bit of everything for that football team. He's the leading rusher and leading receiver. Can Schoolcraft win that football game this weekend?
Yeah, I think so. Schoolcraft's been away from the party for a long time. They had a tremendous run for a long time as well. They're rich in school tradition. Transitioned some new coaches the last couple of years, and they've done a fantastic job. I like the way they've improved all year long, and so I think they're destined to get to Detroit. But they're going to have to face Menominee. I'm not going against them, but I think Schoolcraft gets this one and goes to the state championship.
I love Division 7 because you have the 4 best teams in the state played it out, and the 4 best teams got there. I like Schoolcraft as well, but I think it's going to be a close football game. I'm going to take Schoolcraft 22-17 to win that football game.
All right, we're back even 2-2.
Ken, we talked about all the teams we covered this year playing for state championships and having the opportunity to play for a state championship. And then we had some really great guests on the show tonight. We had Jeff Quinn, former offensive line coach at Notre Dame. He also coached the Kelsey brothers at Cincinnati, and Mike Wilford. He won the Fiesta Bowl at Nebraska, 2-time All-American at Grand Valley State. Just talk about our guest a little bit.
Well, it just continues. Week after week, they just seem to get, I don't want to say better because they're all really good, and I don't want to call any better than anybody else, but fantastic people, care about people. They talk relationships, they mean relationships, just outstanding. And I like what they talked about, in order to be a good team, we got to be better mentally, we got to be better people in the classroom, in the community, before we can be better winners. And so I love what they said, their message. Coach Quinn, just outstanding. And talking about Coach Kelly a little bit, again, relationships. So they're just great people, great guests. I appreciate them coming on our show. It makes our job a lot of fun.
Well, and we have to thank Shannon for allowing him to come on the show. And we had about 30 minutes of video before we even went on the air. That's how fun Coach Quinn was to talk to. But Ken, next week, it's Thanksgiving. We're going to have a spread. Ryan's family, mom is going to be making desserts. We're going to have a table, and we're going to be talking about state championship football games. I know Goob will be back here. Joel will be back here. We're going to have a good time. Yeah, let's hear it. Let's go. Yeah. So tune in next week for Outside the Hashmarks.
Oh, yeah.
Woo!